Hi, my name is Dr. Joseph Thomas, and I am a psychiatry resident in Jamaica. And I would like to thank Jermaine from Malhood for inviting me to speak today to share some quick tips on men's mental health for this segment. So I want to begin by just saying that the unexamined life is not worth living. Right, and this is not my quote. This is a quote by Socrates, and really and truly, I'm really getting at to sit down and think and examine your life, right? Sit down and have a quiet time with yourself, and think through some of the things that I'll be bringing up, all right? So I'm going to be going through three D's today, right? The first D is for depression, right? And it's actually one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality globally, right? So what that means is that people are affected by it in the way that they might have lots of income, or they might have some effect in regards to their relationship, and it might actually lead to death in some cases in regards to suicide, and also like murder suicide. And the WHO has actually said that the global burden will actually be would be the leading cause. The leading cause of morbidity and mortality would be um, depression will be the leading cause by the year 2030. And so that's just saying that depression is something that is very prevalent, very prevalent, prevalent among men and also prevalent among women. And it's also expressed in different ways. In women, when someone is depressed, they might also have comorbid anxiety problems, etc., etc. In men, what we see typically is that they might also have a substance use problem, which means that men typically express their depression um, by using substances. Commonly, there's alcohol and there's cannabis, marijuana, right? And so instead of many, guys not necessarily going to some guys not going to necessarily going to say, oh, if you're sad and depressed and you want to talk about your emotions, but what they do is they use a different um way of expressing themselves. So they say, okay, I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to drink. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to smoke. And I'm bringing this up not for you to think about other persons and say, oh yeah, it's true, it must be very sad because you always see him smoking, always see him drinking. But no, what I would implore is that you have take some time and reflect, right? Reflect on your own experiences. Another thing which we do is that of escapism, where we use different ways to escape the reality or to escape our reality, and that might be seen in things like let's say video games, or um going out with friends, or different things that spend a lot of time on YouTube or movies. We use these different ways to escape our reality and really not to deal with a lot of the things that are affecting us, right? And so one of the questions I want you to consider is to give it some thought. Am I depressed? Is there anything emotional? Are there any emotional problems that I'm running away from? And give it some serious thought. Sit down and take a journal and write whatever comes to mind. Because you're not really going to understand or know unless you examine yourself. And even if somebody tells you, many times not going to click on until you actually sit down and think about it. And so I want to encourage you to take the time, sit down and think about some of these questions that I am proposing. Right. So the first D was for depression, right? It is a major problem. And um, many of us, as I said, it's expressed differently. And so give it some thought and see if it clicks. The next D I want to be talking about is that of displacement. And no, I didn't say misplacement. We're not misplacing anything. But it's D for displacement. And really in psychology, that is a defense mechanism, right? And so what this means is that displacement is a scenario, for example, is that you go to work and you have a strict boss, right? So the boss comes and shouts at you, and you know yourself that you can't shout at the boss, or else you go lose your job, right? So instead of shouting back at the boss, what you do, you keep it together, you keep it calm and cool, and you know everything is alright. But then when you reach home now, when you reach home, your demeanor towards your wife or your family members is more aggressive, more hostile. It's more you get into arguments very easily, right? And um, you, in essence, what it's saying is that the anger that you have towards the boss, your emotion that you have towards the boss is now taken out in another way. It is displaced, right? The anger from your boss is displaced towards somebody else or something else. In this case, I'm talking about family, right? So you come home and you vex or you frustrated from work and you come and take out in your kids. For this easiest, simple thing, you get um, angry or upset about it instead of being understanding, um, and or on your spouse, right? And you use the stresses of the world and you bring it into your home environment. And so person may be saying, you know, how come you just so angry? You just get upset so easily. And so the question that I'm bringing for you to think about is, am I taking up the stress of the world on my close family or my friends, right? It's not easily recognized because it's unconscious. You don't say, oh, I'm going to go home and take it out on my family, but it happens, and we're really to sit down and think and say, is this actually something that I'm experiencing? Am I doing this? Right? So we went through, we touched a bit on depression, and we touched a bit on this thing called displacement. And the last D that I have to discuss is actually doesn't start with D. It is actually addiction, right? But D is in there, right? So it works. So it is addiction. In First Corinthians 6:12, right, it says that all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but I will not be dominated by anything. And this is from the English Standard Version, right? I will not be dominated by anything. And when we think of addictions, we think generally the big things. I spoke a bit about substances. You have alcohol addiction. You have addiction to smoking. You might also what might also come to mind is addiction to pornography, right? And yes, those may be addictions. Some other more subtle addictions that I want you to be aware of is simple things like being addicted to watching YouTube, for example. You spend hours on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook scrolling and scrolling, and you scrolling your life away, right? Or maybe even watching TV or watching Netflix, after episode, series after series, and many times maybe a part of the is being trying to escape from the reality, but also it might just be that we are um, addicted, um, and it's pulling on us, and we're just draining our life, draining our interactions with persons because you want to go home, you want to beat this game, or you want to watch this episode, right? And I want you to be aware of that, right? That is as a possibility, not just the big things, quote unquote big things, that's given a lot of attention, but also the subtle things that really nabs at life. And I share an example with you. Even up until recently, probably um, a month ago, right? I found myself in I guess a spiral. Let's call it a spiral where I was um, I'd reach home and work is stressful, so you go home and you just want to be not doing much. So you watch you watch YouTube or you watch a series on Netflix. And in my case as well, I was just like playing video games, and it's like day after day or weekend after weekend when I would normally engage with persons, I would want to be putting back on not for any reason, but just just because I found it entertaining, which is not a problem, but it's just the time that I was spending. I know that I could have been using that time differently. I could have allocated my time a bit different. I could have had a time for entertainment and had a time for engaging with other persons, had a time for personal development, etc. And I knew that this was taking a big part out of my life, and it wasn't until really I sat down and I think God just brought to my mind that that I am doing all these things and I'm not engaging in my what would be more beneficial, and I may be addicted. And a friend of mine was going on a fast, and I was like, oh, let me I can join, and I'm going to fast. I'm going to stay away from um spending like I'm going to stay away from social media, and also I'm going to stay away from video games, and for the month of February, right? So that is um one of the ways where I really took time and had some introspection and also made a plan and put it into action, right? And it's been good so far. It's been I feel like I've been able to have my life in a more orderly way, which I want. Right. So the other question is, am I being ruled by anything? Right. It's not that some of these things are necessarily bad per se, but am I ruled by it? Is it consuming my mind? Is it consuming my free time? Is it consuming all my free time? Is it consuming my regular thought pattern? Am I being ruled by anything? And I want to encourage you to sit down and think through these questions. I'll just repeat them again. Am I depressed? Is there any emotional problem that I'm running away from? Am I taking out the stress of the world on my close friends or family? And am I being ruled by anything? If this pertains to you, there is hope, right? And the first key to getting over these things is that accepting that I struggle with these things, or I struggle with these things. I have an issue with these things, and seek help, right? Seek help, whether from churches, from counseling. You reach out on the Malhunt YouTube channel. They have good content there. Reach out. Don't suffer in silence. It's easy to push away and to ignore and to not examine ourselves and to just ignore and to just be living in the mundane. But I encourage you, think through these things and speak to someone trusted about it, church or counseling, and get help. Don't wait until it's too late and you wake up 10 years down the line and you wonder, what have I been doing with my life? Let's find a problem now and let's get help. Thank you.